Hello everyone, welcome back. We are going to create a scrapbook layout with a card kit today. I could not resist the adorable little dog and cat themed collection here. So these are the colorful step-by-step instructions that walk you through assembling these cards. And all of the kits are a little bit different. Some of them have stamping, and this one does. So they've given you a little old olive stamping block or a stamping spot, and then you even get an acrylic block. There's some adorable little bling. Aren't those cute little hearts? And then you have your ephemera, and these are so easy because you just pop them out. I am going to be documenting some photos of my cat Brian and sharing his story. I've not given him a proper introduction here on my channel, and his beginning is an unusual one. So aren't these cute? You're just so happy. Little kitties there. I love it. So, and my mother-in-law has basset hounds, so I cannot wait to make her a card with that. So you have your, all of your dogs and cats that you need there. And then you have these, which you just pop right out. These punch out nice and clean, super easy. These are where you would stamp your sentiment here. So this one has the cutest stamp set. And there's little paw prints on there where you can see it better here. They give you a insert, so when you're going to put it in your collection later, you can easily see what's on the image. Paw prints, there's a bone for the dog, a little fish. Here's to a true friend. You make my heart happy. I'll always be by your side and best friends forever. So great for cards or scrapbooking sentiments. So that's why I bought the kit. As I mentioned, I want to use these for scrapbooking. I'm going to make some cards too. But you have a big, section of Stampin' Dimensionals, some little dimensional foam there, and then you get all the pieces. So you just punch out the circle. You can see how they've used those here on these cards. You can add the little stamping, and then these, you pop out the little hearts. Oop, I've got two of them there. And they have some little stitching detail around the outside edge. They really are very beautifully detailed kits. I have been loving the Stampin' Up card kits. So I don't know if you can see on camera that little tiny stitching detail. I think you can see it there. But yeah, all the pieces, stamp them, layer them, and you have quick cards. But let's go ahead and clear these out of the way, and we will start the scrapbooking process. These are nice to take if you're traveling. We like to do some motorhome road trips, and I love to take little card kits when I go. And then if you want to get together with some friends, these are fun also. They don't take a lot of time, and there's not really much left over, and you don't really need a whole lot. Everything is in the kit, so that is awesome. We'll bring in my Versamat here, and then I'll show you the photos I'm documenting today. For now, I think I will bring in a sheet of White Daisy for my base. I may swap that out later, but these are my two photos. This is Brian about a month after we brought him home, and I'll tell you more about how I ended up with Brian. But he was hanging out in my craft room watching me scrapbook, and he's on my photo albums. He just thought that was his little playground, and I'm just the cutest, right? Who can resist an orange cat with that look on their face? So what I'm thinking is to have these kind of maybe like this. And this is 4x5. This one is 3x3. Now we have two different card bases that come in this kit. So they're pre-printed, and you just layer your embellishments right over the background, giving them some dimension and making them look really elevated. And most card kits, a lot of them will have a pattern on the back of the card also. So what I like to do is cut them in half and stretch my card bases to get even more from the kits. In this case, they're just solid, but just a little tip for you. So I think I like with Brian's photos here. It's predominantly black and white he's what we would call a diluted orange kitty boy. I like this color's perfect. It really complements little Brian there. So I think we could maybe do something like this and create a column with these, and then we'll camouflage the center with something going across, and you'll never know that those were two different pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these down. So now we can use these two for something else, and then we'll just run these, I think maybe about 2 inches in for now from the edge, and then we can kind of work on camouflaging the gap in between. I am considering using the stamp set to maybe do some random stamping on here and make my own pattern paper. There's the paw print. There's actually, it looks like one is smaller than the other. So yeah, this is the dog and this is the cat. So the kitty paw and the fish, and just kind of random stamping them in a light color for tone on tone, but I'm not sure yet. I don't want it to get too busy. So let's go ahead and just keep going with the layout, and I'm dry fitting everything, so if I do want to stamp these later, I can. So we are going to make this look like a solid piece back here. So we have, you know, an awkward little spot here to camouflage. I do want to put my title right here, which would help hide that. This color right here is called Cajun Craze, so I thought we could possibly bring in this. We have a lot of white space in the background, so I want to punch it up with some cardstock, but this is a very vivid color, and I'm not sure I want it making that big of a statement. So this might be better in small doses as an accent piece than, you know, a big cardstock section that I am considering behind here. These are some of the browns I have in my stash. This is toffee, and I don't like that. I mean, it looks good with Brian, but not with those tones. And then this is espresso. This was already cut. I don't even know what that is. It is 7 3/4 by 12. So I do like that color. It kind of complements, it's like a darker version of those, the pattern there. And then this one here is mocha, which is a very reddish brown. You know what? I think I like this one. And let's go ahead and see if this already will work behind here. So it's always nice to kind of just work with your scraps when you have them rather than cutting into something new. Now I can remove all of the section behind here that isn't showing, so I save myself a 4-inch piece. And that way the 4 inches, you know, section can go a long ways on another project. So it's always nice to remove those pieces that are hidden. Plus it kind of cuts down on the weight in your scrapbook album as well. So I do like the brown. Let's bring this over just enough to where we don't have this little gap showing. I've got all these different gaps. So if we bring this picture over to the edge there, it's a little bit less distracting. These two kitty elements are going to be the largest embellishments on my page, so I'll bring those in, and then I want to start working on my title because that is also going to be a large element. I have decided to use Cajun Craze, and I've got the Moxie Alpha on the Misty door there. It spells out Brian, his name. I know, not very creative, but it made sense to me. So this is a retired stamp and die set from close to my heart, but you could absolutely use, you know, thickers or die cuts that you have in your stash, anything that can spell out your title. This Cajun Craze is such a pretty color. I think it's going to be perfect for fall. I do have the coordinating dies for the Moxie Alpha, so I will go ahead and die cut these. We'll bring this back into the center and we'll spell out his name. Make sure I get them in the right order so it says Brian and not Brain. That would be funny. So this is going to act as a little shelf for our main focal photo there. And then I'm going to ink up the edges of my lighter, I believe that card base is crumb cake. I'm using espresso, which is the same as the cardstock color I chose behind the card bases there. So the story about Brian. As you know, I work in the vet industry, and we have a weekend rotation where a technician has to go in and take care of the hospitalized animals. So it happened to be my weekend. Little Brian had come in Friday night on emergency. He was in the care of a foster and was not doing well. I'm going to go ahead and mat these photos on some black cardstock just to help them stand out and give them a little bit more presence. Plus, this will help further camouflage that gap there. Brian had severe diarrhea, so he was incredibly dehydrated and he was no longer eating. So he had gotten so weak that he was just not even lifting his head. He was kind of giving up. The rescue agency wanted to give him the weekend to see how he responded. So we started him on IV fluids. We performed some basic blood work and, just different tests. And we were hoping for the best. I went ahead and adhered my title. Let's bring these back in, and I want them resting on something, but I don't want them straight across from each other. So maybe we could put this kitty up on the upper shelf here, and I could use this spot for my journaling. Now I also want to bring in a pop of this Cajun Craze to this area of the layout. I could use my secret weapon, my favorite tag die, but I need to incorporate my journaling also. So I'm just kind of playing around with some different ideas. I cut 2 tags, one from white and one from Cajun Craze, so I can use the white tag for my journaling here. We can tuck them in like this, or we could run them horizontal, which might look really nice. So let's go ahead and try that, and we'll slide this one under here, and let me tuck that underneath the main photo there. And then we can add this one here. You'll see I did end up scooting that lower photo over. I decided it wasn't a bad thing to see the brown, and I actually kind of like it now that the title's there. Rather than random stamp and create a pattern on that crumb cake card base layer, I decided to make the pattern on this little Cajun Craze tag. So I have the little fish stamp mounted to the block, and I want a subtle look, so I'm going for a tone on tone using the same ink. I thought about mixing the fish and the paw print, but the paw print's a little bit bigger of a scale than I want for this small tag, so we're just going to use the fish and make our own little fish pattern paper. So that is first generation. I'm going to rotate it and stamp it in second generation, which just means I've stamped off once, I did not re-ink it, and I'm stamping it again. I realize it's really, really light. It's a little bit lighter than I want, but the full strength is darker, so I have an idea. If you have the Versamark watermark stamp pad, which we tend to use for embossing because it's a sticky ink, you can also use it to create a watermark, which is, you can see, slightly darker than the second generation, but still lighter than the first generation. So it's kind of like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. It's just right. I'm going to flip my tag over and go ahead and create my random stamp little fish pattern using the Versamark ink. So this is a great tip if you don't have all the coordinating inks and you just want that tone on tone look. Use your Versamark, which, like I said, most of us have this in our embossing supply stash. I'm making sure to rotate and turn the fish in all sorts of different directions. I'm stamping off the edge also to give it a very natural look, like it's cut from a pattern paper. Let's go ahead and finish this tag off by inking up the edges really quick to give it a little definition with the same espresso brown ink. And it probably doesn't show up as well on camera, but it is such a cool little effect with the Versamark ink. Looking at my photo albums in the picture kind of sparked an idea. I have a whole bunch of book theme stamps, so I found this one. It's from the Cozy Up collection. This, again, is from my stash. This is a retired close to my heart stamp, but maybe you have a stack of books. Book stamps are very popular. I know, because I have quite a few of them, but I thought we could put this little kitty on the books, and I think that scale is going to be perfect. So let's go ahead and stamp this in intense black ink. So back to Brian. I went in that Saturday morning to take care of all the hospitalized critters and do the treatments, make sure his IVs are flowing, and give him his antibiotics. And he's just covered head to toe in diarrhea. He's just been laying there all night. He's cold. So I get him all cleaned up and, give him his treatments. And he's purring. He's just purring the whole time, looking at me just with the sweetest little, expression on his face. And my heart went out to him. Typically on a weekend, we just come in the morning and in the evening and take care of the animals, feed them, and do their, their hospitalized treatments. But I just couldn't help myself. I couldn't stay away, and I kept popping in and out of the clinic to make sure that he was warm and clean and just, extra care. Now this is my all-purpose mat. I'm going to do a little watercoloring with my ink pads here. I've got Almond, Cajun Craze, and Old Olive. And to do this, all you need is a water brush. So, whoa, that was a lot of ink. I always forget how juicy these are. I did not need that much, but that's okay. So I'm squeezing out just a little bit of water to dilute this. Now this book stamp is just on white daisy cardstock. It's not on watercolor paper or anything fancy. And it will take a surprising amount of water, but only so much. So keep that in mind. I want a very watercolor soft painterly look, because when you look at the kitties from this collection, they also have that watercolor look, and I want it to match so they look like they go together and it's cohesive. So I'm using the old Olive to just color some of the little book spines. Then I know this is wasteful. I probably should have grabbed a card base and soaked that up for a fun background, but we're just going to keep on keeping on. Now we're going to switch to almond, and those aren't quite as juicy, so you can definitely get, generous when you're patting those on your mat to apply some color. This is a great way to use your ink pads. If you don't have markers in your stamp collection yet, then this is a fun way to color. These water brushes are very inexpensive, and you just clean the brush tip by squeezing the water through it and, rubbing it on a paper towel, and you can use one for all of your colors. So by some miracle, Brian made it through the weekend, and he was still doing very poorly, and he kept getting sicker through the week. So as you can imagine, the hospital bill being in isolation on IV fluids was racking up quickly, and the rescue organization was kind of making that difficult decision of, well, we have a lot of cats. Should we really be spending this kind of money on one patient? So I'm just using the edge of my stamp pad, so I'm not wasting it this time. I'm a quick learner. And anyway, Dr. Whitman, the practice owner I work for, his heart just went out to little Brian because, as I said, he never stopped purring, and he just acted like he wanted to live. So he capped the bill and did, everything from there on was pro bono. Brian ended up living at the vet hospital, undergoing treatment for over 3 months, you guys. That is insane. But he was just the sweetest little patient. I'm showing you my little book stack here. Let's see how it looks on the layout. Moment of truth here. And I'm going to tuck that right under the title, put our kitty on top. Oh, and it's perfect. It looks like it was made to match those kitties. And I just love how we can customize our ephemera. So I want to add a little bit of green in this lower right-hand corner. I've got my paw print, and I'm going to use Old Olive. So remember, if you don't have this stamp pad, the kit comes with a little mini ink cube, and that's a great way to collect some of the colors. So I want these kind of coming out from underneath the photo. I'm going to practice first, make sure it's stamping well before you put it on your layout there. And then what I'm going to do is just kind of hold it up where I want it and then scoot the photo out of the way. So needless to say, everybody fell in love with Brian, but nobody needed another cat. I had 3 cats at home. I tried to get my mom to take them, several of my friends. I'm like, please adopt this cat. Meanwhile, I went on vacation to Alaska, and while I was gone, Brian went back to the rescue organization, and I was just so sad. I couldn't stop thinking about him. And on my way home, we were just waiting in the airport. I called our hospital administrator and just to say, hey, have you heard an update on Brian? And she said, well, he's still at the rescue organization and he's not being adopted. Now, this is my Perfectly Imperfect Patterns stamp set. I love this. It's one of my go-tos. And again, this is retired from close to my heart. I'm going to add some splatter stamping coming out from behind the kitty. On the way home, I talked to my husband and I said, look, I know we don't need another cat. I know this is insane, but there's just something about this little guy. He wants to live. He deserves to have a good life, and I would like to give him a home. So if he's still there when we get back, what do you think? And he's like, yeah, whatever. So, he's probably looking at me like I'm a crazy cat lady, right? And sure enough, Brian was still there, and I went and picked him up, and he fit right into our family, and I'm so glad. He's just such a sweet little guy. His intestines seem to be permanently damaged, and he has to eat special food, so he's kind of high maintenance, but that's, if you work in the industry, you're bound to have some animals that have problems, right? So this is a little string. Stampin' Up! Has lots of twine in different colors. Here's some of the colors. I just love this stuff. It's great for tying to the top of your tags. But in this case, I'm going to jumble it up and tuck it underneath that playful kitten at the top with the ball of yarn. So it looks like just kind of string. We've got the scatter, splatter stamping, and now we've got the string kind of coming out, adding some texture, and it just all creates this little scene to help tell the story of mischievous kitty behavior. So we have our Stampin' Dimensionals that come in the kit. I'm going to pop this up. I like to use foam tape when there's string or twine behind it because it will get rid of those lumps and bumps. The foam kind of compensates for any irregularities that the string or twine may cause. While under the care of the rescue organization, his name was Mel, so they actually dubbed him Miracle Mel, and he just had a big impact on everyone. I don't even know what it is. It's very unusual. I could probably count the amount of pro bono cases on one hand, and I've been at this vet hospital for, over 25 years. But there was just something about this little kitty. He was special, and I'm really glad that he is part of our family. I'm adding a word sentiment from this same stamp set. I've got some of my little label dies from my stash, and I'm looking for one that will fit. None of these are quite tall enough, so I don't think any of those options are going to work. These are the nested essential dies from Stampin' Up, and I love these. Anything with faux stitching detail and nesting shapes, I think, are an amazing staple to have in your crafty stash. So this is going to fit. I'm going to stamp this. It says, "You make my heart happy." I'm going to stamp this towards the bottom, and then we're going to cut it out so it's like a little tab, and it'll have this little tiny kind of, not stitching, but they're like dots on this one. You can see I added my journaling to the white tag above the photo there, and I'm going to die cut this here. I'll show it to you so you can see the little detail on it. And again, we just want it to look like a little tab, so I just cut the top portion of that shape. For my journaling, I did not include his great big long survivor story, if you will. I do have pictures of him in the hospital that weekend and then throughout his recovery, and those are the photos where I'm going to include his story. I am using my journaling pen to add a little line. I don't want this straight, so I am using just hand-drawn lines. There'll be little bits of variations and imperfections, but I'm just dragging my hand towards me. This is my brown journaling pen. It's called Le Pen. These are from Close to My Heart, but you can find these online, and they are nice journaling pens. So we're going to add a little bit more stamping with a stamp from my stash, and there's a little ball of yarn and a stamp that says meow. So I thought I would add just a little bit of detail because I'm having fun with all this stamping, right? Why stop now? We're going to do a little tone on tone and add that down in the corner. Again, if you have crumb cake, this I believe is crumb cake, but I'm using almond from my stash. And then let's put meow kind of up here by the kitty. Stay tuned, I have some cards to share with you, and I want to mention that if you want to create a double page layout, you could use the other two card bases. There's 4 total of the same. Flip the design and easily make this into a double page layout. And I just want to point out how well those books with the water brush ink painting technique coordinate with the watercolor wash look on the card base. I think that that is just super cool how well those coordinated, and I love it. So let's take a look at these cards. Now, again, if you wanted to use a double page, you've got 2 more and you can just flip that. But I went ahead and created the cards. Now, what's fun about the Buy Your Side kit is they actually give you enough of the die cuts to where you can make all of the cards dog themed or cat themed. So I went ahead and made them all dog themed, and I think that's really cute if you're a dog lover or a cat lover, or maybe you want to do 50-50. But these are how I put them together just like the workshop showed. I just followed the picture instructions and assembled those cards, and I think they are adorable. So there's that set. So again, you get enough to make 4 cards if you are not creating extra projects with it. And then of course I went with all of the Basset Hound cards and just created a bunch of these. Now I had a few additional pieces left over. I had this portion here, the inner frame, and then a couple of the little Scotty dogs there. So I went through my stash and just found some green papers that would coordinate. So this is kind of a lighter version of the old olive, and this one was a darker version. So I, was inspired by the offset angle of this one. So I just offset it. I added the paw prints, and then the heart is the negative piece from this. So I just used those to add to this. And that is papaya cardstock from my stash because I was looking for something to go along with the same color tones. So yeah, you can use those extra pieces and make even more cards. Now the envelopes are adorable. They have a little spot so you can stamp the paws on there. So you have You know, this one goes with these, and then you have that one to coordinate with those. So it's really nice to have decorative envelopes. It makes it even more special. But because I chose to go with all of the dogs, I have all of this cute kitty ephemera I can create other scrapbook pages with, or I could even embellish cards with these. And the kits do give you extra sentiment spots just in case you mess those up. And I always save these. I have a little drawer where I put my like sentiment spots, and they're really nice to just grab if you need to make a quick card. So they're a neutral canvas, so you can use those on just about any project. So that's kind of nice to have. And my extra bling, I decided to go with this color heart from the offset rather than add these and utilize those, but they're so fun. I hope this helps you kind of look outside of the box and maybe stretch your crafty supplies and use them in different ways. That did make for a very quick scrapbook layout. So you can find all of the supplies I've used listed in the description box below. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up, and I look forward to hearing from you in the comments. Thank you so much for spending a little time with me today, and happy crafting, everyone. Bye.